Koolasuchus, the giant salamander that terrorized dinosaurs. Picture this. When you think of an amphibian today, you likely picture a fragile frog or a tiny salamander hiding under a damp leaf, desperately trying to avoid becoming a quick snack. But if we rewind the clock 120 million years, plunging headfirst into the early Cretaceous period, reality fractures into something entirely unrecognizable. Imagine a prehistoric world where towering dinosaurs were not always the untouchable apex predators of the landscape. Sometimes they were the prey. Deep within the freezing, forested Rift Valley that once connected ancient Australia and Antarctica, a true monster lurked beneath the murky, icy currents. This was no armored reptile or agile mammalian hunter. This was Koolasuchus, a gargantuan amphibian nightmare engineered for absolute destruction. Stretching longer than a heavy-duty pickup truck and weighing considerably more than a grand concert piano, this river leviathan was a relic out of time. While the iconic dinosaurs battled for supremacy on the sunlit riverbanks above, Koolasuchus waited quietly in the unforgiving dark below. It lay perfectly motionless on the riverbed, acting as an enormous flesh-eating bear trap hidden beneath the heavy silt and decaying vegetation. It was the very last of a dying dynasty of giant amphibians, a stubborn ghost from a completely forgotten epoch that aggressively refused to go extinct. Its mere existence in this era defies logic, representing a chilling glitch in the evolutionary timeline, where a slimy, cold-blooded creature reigned supreme over the undisputed masters of the Mesozoic era. Yet, the aspect that truly haunts modern paleontologists is not just its staggering, unnatural size or its endless rows of recurved, piercing teeth. The ultimate mind-bending question is how this seemingly archaic, sluggish creature managed to consistently slaughter the most highly advanced reptilian titans of its age. The answer to this biological mystery does not lie in sheer brute force alone. To understand how a salamander became a merciless dinosaur killer, we have to look closely at the extreme, brutal environment itself, because the secret weapon of Koolasuchus was hiding in the very water it breathed. 120 million years ago, the vast land masses of Australia and Antarctica were violently tearing apart. Stitched together by a massive, plunging rift valley. This was not the warm, tropical dinosaur paradise you see in blockbuster movies. This was a brutal polar world. Plunged into months of perpetual winter darkness, the rivers flowing through this ancient gorge were brutally cold. Picture plunging into a deep, glacier-fed lake in the dead of winter. That is the paralyzing environment we are dealing with. For a dinosaur, this icy water was an absolute death sentence. Dinosaurs, despite their terrifying terrestrial dominance, relied heavily on ambient heat to keep their massive biological engines actively running. When they stepped into the freezing currents to drink, the cold violently sapped their core temperature. Their leg muscles seized, their neurological reaction times plummeted, and they became fatally sluggish. This is the exact thermal trap where the giant Koolasuchus reigned. Unlike the highly evolved reptiles, this enormous amphibian was perfectly adapted to the bitter cold, operating like a stealthy organic submarine in near-freezing conditions. It did not need the blazing sun to fuel its rampage. It possessed a remarkably slow metabolism that thrived entirely in the dark, frigid depths where dominant crocodiles simply could not survive. By staying completely submerged in water, hovering just above absolute freezing, Koolasuchus cleverly eliminated its competition. The river was its personal fortress, an impregnable vault of icy water that effectively neutralized the speed and agility of the dinosaurs walking above. Whenever a thirsty herbivore, perhaps a towering 2-ton ornithopod, waded blindly out into the murky shallows, The agonizing cold would instantly numb its lower senses. The dinosaur would have no idea that the muddy river floor beneath its heavy feet was actually a living, breathing entity. The freezing water was not just a habitat, it was nature's ultimate weapon, heavily tilting the scales of power back to the ancient amphibian lineage. But merely surviving in this icy wasteland was only half the battle. To actually kill a dinosaur, this river monster had to evolve a devastating trap no prey could possibly escape. But a freezing environment is merely a tactical advantage. It is not a killing blow. To actually execute a terrestrial giant, Koolasuchus relied on a staggering feat of biomechanical engineering. Forget the sleek, aerodynamic profiles of modern aquatic hunters. The skull of this ancient amphibian was completely flat, devastatingly wide and bizarrely shaped. While some might jokingly compare its massive silhouette to the lid of an enormous toilet seat, a far more accurate visual is the reinforced steel hood of a classic American muscle car. If that heavy hood were hinged at the very back and lined with dozens of thick, backward curving spikes. This was not a skull designed for high-speed, graceful underwater pursuits. It was a heavy-duty biological vault door, explicitly constructed to slam shut with unyielding force. Because the icy riverbeds of the Cretaceous Rift Valley were perpetually choked with dark silt and plunged into months of seasonal night, standard vision was practically useless. To adapt, Koolasuchus evolved to hunt without seeing. It relied on a terrifyingly precise network of vibration sensors running along its massive jawline and flattened body. This sophisticated lateral line system essentially turned the entire creature into a living, organic pressure plate. It could feel the exact weight, the trembling muscle spasms, and the specific displacement of water caused by a dinosaur wading into the shallows, sensing its prey long before the surface ever rippled. It simply rested in the freezing mud, a fleshy landmine holding its breath, coldly calculating the shifting microcurrents above. The moment the heavy foot of a sluggish, freezing herbivore stepped into the invisible strike zone, the trap detonated. The strike of a Koolasuchus was less about a traditional bite and more about generating a catastrophic underwater vacuum. By violently throwing open its manhole-sized jaws in a fraction of a second, it displaced an immense volume of water, creating an inescapable, localized undertow. The dinosaur was not merely bitten, it was violently inhaled into a cavernous maw of interlocking teeth. But understanding the elegant mechanics of this aquatic trap is entirely different from comprehending the sheer, earth-shaking violence of an ambush at full, terrifying scale. To truly grasp the absolute terror of this ancient ecosystem, you must fully comprehend the sheer, crushing scale of the apex moment. Imagine standing on the edge of that freezing Cretaceous riverbank. Below you is not just a predator, but a prehistoric submarine made of muscle, bone, and malice. Stretching over 15 feet long, roughly the length of a heavy-duty American pickup truck, and weighing as much as a concert grand piano, Koolasuchus was a biological wrecking ball. Now, picture the terrifying climax of an ambush. A nervous herd of dinosaurs, shivering in the polar twilight, cautiously approaches the water to drink. They are hyper-alert, scanning the dense tree line for agile land predators, completely unaware that the muddy river bottom directly beneath them is actively tracking their every heartbeat. The largest of the herd takes one step too deep into the murky, icy water. The lateral line sensors of the giant amphibian flare. In a fraction of a heartbeat, the illusion of the peaceful riverbed violently shatters. The water erupts. A mouth as wide as a massive storm, drain explodes upward. Propelled by heavily muscled legs pushing off the river floor like steel pistons. The sheer hydrostatic shockwave alone knocks the helpless dinosaur off balance. Before the completely terrified herbivore can vocalize a screech of panic, the spike-lined jaws clamp shut around its torso. The dinosaur is not dragged. It is abruptly and violently swallowed by the river itself. Koolasuchus uses its tremendous weight to instantly anchor its thrashing prey beneath the freezing surface. There is no epic struggle, no prolonged battle of strength upon the muddy riverbanks. Just a sudden, violent splash, a chaotic swirl of dark water, and then a chilling, dead silence returning to the prehistoric forest. The icy depths claim another victim, proving that in this frozen realm, the amphibian was the undisputed king. But even the most perfectly engineered reign of terror cannot last forever, and the ultimate doom of this river monster would not come from a larger set of teeth, but from the relentless, unstoppable march of the very earth beneath it. But in the grand, unforgiving theater of Earth's history, hyper-specialization is almost always a delayed death sentence. The terrifying reign of the giant salamander was built entirely upon a fragile foundation of ice, and unfortunately for Koolasuchus, the planet was about to undergo a slow-motion apocalypse. Over millions of years, the massive tectonic plates deep beneath the surface began to groan and shift. Australia, the frozen fortress of this amphibian king, finally tore itself completely away from the Antarctic landmass. Like a massive, unmoored cargo ship drifting inevitably toward the equator, the entire continent slowly moved northward into much warmer latitudes. The endless polar nights began to shrink. The thick glaciers feeding the deep Rift Valley rivers melted away, and the once lethal freezing currents gradually transformed into warm, sunlit, heavily vegetated waterways. This seemingly subtle shift in temperature completely dismantled the ultimate weapon of the Koolasuchus. As the waters warmed, the towering terrestrial dinosaurs no longer froze or suffered neurological shutdowns when they waded in to drink. The terrifying, cold-blooded advantage simply evaporated into the warm air. But the true harbinger of doom for this ancient river monster was not just the changing climate. It was the arrival of the ultimate aquatic usurper. The newly warmed rivers effectively rolled out the red carpet for a sleek, heavily armored, and highly advanced reptilian competitor, the ancestor of the modern crocodile. Compared to the sluggish, flat-headed amphibian, these new crocodilians were biological marvels engineered specifically for warm water domination. They were drastically faster, possessed a much higher metabolism, and wielded a devastatingly superior bite force that could effortlessly shatter bone. Koolasuchus, a cumbersome ambush predator perfectly tailored for a freezing, dark world that simply no longer existed, suddenly found itself hopelessly outmatched in its own domain. It could no longer compete for food, and even worse, it likely became easy prey for the very reptilian lineage it once routinely slaughtered. The last of the great amphibians was systematically pushed to the absolute brink, fading away into evolutionary oblivion as the triumphant crocodiles claimed the warm rivers. Yet, the brutal extinction of this bizarre, dinosaur-eating leviathan is not just a forgotten footnote hidden in the fossil record. The rise and tragic fall of Koolasuchus leaves behind a deeply unsettling revelation about the delicate, ruthless balance of life on our own rapidly changing planet. Today, if you travel to the sun-scorched, arid outback of Victoria, Australia, you will find no freezing, dark rivers. The ancient Rift Valley is completely gone, erased by millions of years of relentless geological violence. Deep beneath the baking red dirt, the fossilized skulls of Koolasuchus lie silently in the dark. They are the stone monuments of a fallen biological empire. But the story of this monstrous salamander is far more than just a bizarre chapter in the annals of paleontology. It is a profound, chilling mirror held up to our own modern existence. Koolasuchus was the absolute apex predator of its realm, perfectly engineered and completely dominant in its frozen domain. Yet, its catastrophic downfall was not brought about by a sudden asteroid impact or a more powerful hunter, but by the slow, inevitable warming of its world. Its hyper-specialization, the very trait that made it a king, became the fatal weight that dragged it down into extinction. We look upon these ancient bones and often feel a sense of distant detachment, secure in our position at the top of the modern food chain. Humanity has built a sprawling, global empire, deeply specialized to thrive within a very specific, historically stable climate. We have mastered our environment, just as the giant amphibian mastered the icy currents of the Cretaceous. But the Earth is not a static, peaceful stage. It is a restless engine that cares nothing for the empires built upon its surface. The rules of survival are ruthlessly being rewritten. The sudden warming that doomed Koolasuchus took millions of years, driven by the slow drift of continents. Today, our world is changing at a fraction of that time, shifting beneath our very feet. So, the next time you see a tiny, fragile amphibian hiding in the damp shadows, do not just see a simple creature of the mud. See the forgotten lineage of giant kings. And as you look out over our towering concrete cities, you must ask yourself one lingering, haunting question. When the global climate shifts again, are we adaptable enough to survive, or are we simply the next great monsters waiting to be buried in the dark?